اشرافی هستم. They may have closed the doors of Ashraf, but they will never close the dream of Ashraf. Ashraf will always live. It's an honor to be here with all of you, the future faces of a free Iran. As you can imagine, growing up in my family, I have become a student of history. This is a historic time. This week, you are remembering the 35th anniversary of the revolution in Iran. And as Madam Rajavi has said, that revolution was hijacked. That revolution stood for freedom. That revolution stood for democracy. That revolution stood for human rights. And now, 35 years later, we have the best opportunity in a generation to finally make good on the promises of that revolution, to finally bring democracy, human rights, and freedom to the people of Iran. Instead of bringing freedom and democracy and human rights, the mullahs have brought a theocracy and dictatorship, not the democracy that was promised. Instead of human rights, the mullahs have brought oppression and repression and imprisonment and torture and terrorism instead of the human rights that were promised. And instead of having a democracy, we have a system of government built on terrorizing not only its own people, but terrorizing people throughout the world. Now, the mullahs say that they want to be part of the international community. But we know the truth is that the mullahs are only saying that because they are more unstable, not only politically at home in Iran, but they are more unstable politically around the world. And that is why this is the opportunity to finally break with the past and move towards the future of a free and democratic Iran. So the question is very clear. Whose side are you on? Are you on the side of a repressive regime that executes more of its people per capita than any other country in the world? Or are you on the side of a government that will be of the people and by the people and for the people. This is not a confusing choice. It is the choice between the past and the future. But let me say something very clear. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot be for a peaceful use of nuclear power and be for the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. You cannot be for the peaceful coexistence of the world and the use of a nuclear program and be for genocide in Syria by supporting Assad. You cannot say that you are for transparency and disclosure and openness with your nuclear program and be murdering and massacring the people of Ashraf and taking 7 hostages, 6 of whom are women. You cannot have it both ways. Nearly 35 years ago, my father chose sides in a historic fight of that time, and that was whether the United States was going to continue to support apartheid in South Africa. And as you know, the leader of the ANC, which was a terrorist organization in the eyes of the United States, was none other than Nelson Mandela, a listed terrorist in the United States. My father stood with Nelson Mandela and the ANC, just like today I stand with Madam Rajavi and the PMOI. And you know, his bill in Congress was a sanctions bill, putting sanctions on the government of South Africa. And just like we're in a moment now, where this president is not sure which side he's going to be on, the president at that time vetoed the sanctions bill. And you know what my father did? Working in a bipartisan way, he overrode the presidential veto and he doubled down on the sanctions. So, I am a student of history because those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat history. And my friends, we ought to be deciding right now to support the democratic resistance of the mullahs, not acquiesce to the demands of the mullahs. We ought to be standing with those who are fighting repression, not siding with those who are executing repression. This is a very simple question. Of which side do you want to be on? So I have always said, any agreement on a nuclear program must be true in its principles. And it must also measure whether Iran is following its rhetoric when it says it wants to be a peaceful, non-nuclear nation. It cannot say that and continue to deny the rights of its own people. It cannot say that and continue to execute its own people. It cannot say that and continue to support Bashar al-Assad in genocide in Syria. So I say to my president, make sure that any agreement on a nuclear deal not only monitors the nuclear sites within Iran, but it also monitors the prisons in Iran. And it also monitors the support for terrorism overseas. That it also monitors the state of those 7 hostages. We cannot have it both ways. And so when this historic time, either to side with the past or the future, is before us, not only the United States, but the international community, I hope that the United States and the international community will make the right choice, and that is to stand on the side of the people of Ashraf and to stand on the side of protecting the dream of freedom. And that is why I'm always so proud to say, Man Irani Hastam. Thank you very much.
President